Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Tanner's Favorite Things. I am Tanner Knight, and today we've got a box in front of us. Let's go ahead and dig in. Alright, this is a very interesting packaging job. Certainly not what this box was intended for, but we're getting there. Aha, looks like we are double boxed. That's a good sign given what's in this double box. So, here we go, box number 2. All right, so we haven't had speakers on this channel in a while because I haven't purchased any. I went through a phase where I just bought a lot of speakers and kind of just had enough at a certain point. But what kind of speaker do we have in here? All righty. This is a Jensen concert electric music speaker. So this is a Jensen, I think it's an Alnico magnet. I'll have to do a little looking on that, but we have 220550 on the side and some other printed text. But this is a vintage speaker with what appears to be a brand new cone. So that's kind of nice on there. So there's number 1. But that is not all. There is a second box underneath. So let's take a look at box number 3. Now, I usually like to buy speakers in pairs, but that just didn't work out this time. This is a muscle magnet. This is a Universal Electronics speaker, the muscle magnet. This is from the 90s, I believe, maybe the late 80s, but this is a 12-inch driver as well. Has kind of the JBL style dust cap, and yeah, it looks good. It's super dusty, which, you know, that's to be expected. These speakers will typically sit in a cabinet and collect dust most of their life and crank for a very small period of their life. But this one was built in Skokie, Illinois. So a US made speaker, and that goes doubly for the Jensen. So 2 new speakers from one vendor. I'm gonna test these out individually, and then I might put both of them into a 2x12 cab to see just what the hell they sound like together, see if it works. But these are 2 very, very different speakers from different eras. I'll have to find the exact date on this one, but it's a lot lighter than I expected. Interesting, we'll have to take this screw off. Oh, looks like I can just turn it here, so let's do that. See what the magnet looks like on the inside. So, just a wee little magnet. So it looks like a ceramic magnet to me, so maybe not Alnico, but just a small little magnet with a big old bell on the backside. So if you've ever wondered what one of those looks like, there you go. And it has a little screw and a washer that's a Phillips head. So that just keeps, I don't know, contaminants out of the magnet. And just for kicks, I'm gonna get that Phillips head on here to tighten this up. Don't wanna go too tight on that. That should work. All right, so Jensen and muscle magnet. Let's see what kind of impedance these speakers have. All right, I've got my handy Fluke 107 multimeter here, which has ohms as one of the settings. So I'm just gonna go ahead and test the terminals and see what kind of ohm rating we have on this speaker. 6.1. It was rating 6.2 earlier, but 6.1 is pretty close to that. So let's go ahead and check out this speaker here. Let me see if I can get out of the way. So this one, 6.1, 6.2, almost identical. And I'm not an expert on ohms or impedance, but I'm fairly sure that most 8 ohm speakers read around that 6 ohm region just to give you a bit of buffer so that you're not over impeding your amp. You know, there you go, 6 ohms, and it actually says 8 ohms on the side of this speaker. We have a sticker that says UES 746, not sure what that means, but 8 ohms. Then we have 12295 6267-8744. I wouldn't be surprised if this is a serial number with a date code of 87. Again, the previous owner of this speaker was a little vague on its origin, but I believe it's from the late 80s, early 90s, somewhere around there. And this one is from the 60s or 70s, or I don't know. We'll have to take a look at the date code and see just how old this Jensen speaker is. So let's go ahead and... All right, here we are with the amp and cabinet that we're going to be trying these two speakers on today. And you can see that I have a 12-inch speaker installed in this PV Encore 65. That means we have 65 watts of tube-driven power. So that might be a problem for our friend the Jensen, who has a 25 watt rating, according to the seller. I'm inclined to believe him. We're gonna still try it. I'm just not gonna crank it so loud that it could potentially blow the speaker that says, again, from the seller, that it was from 1965. So a very truly vintage speaker, and a newly vintage speaker, I guess, in the muscle magnet. So let's go ahead and hear what this Scorpion speaker that is stock with this Encore 65 sounds like as a baseline. Before we do that, I think this Scorpion speaker sounds really good in this amplifier, but I haven't tried any other speaker, honestly. So it'll be interesting to see how much better, how much worse this amp does with a different speaker. And what this is a 4 ohm, 150 watt, I believe, is the Scorpion, maybe 200 watts. It's some ridiculous high amount of RMS handling that these PV Scorpion speakers have, but that doesn't mean that they're louder or sharper than your Celestion variant with 25 watts or what have you. These speakers have a kind of specific application, and they don't sound good in everything. And in fact, this PV cabinet behind the amplifier came with the exact same stock Scorpion speakers, and the cab just sounds terrible. I don't know how or why, but once I swapped them out for Celestion speakers, the cab came alive, and it was as simple as that. But in this application, the single Scorpion sounds really good. I like it. Here's the baseline sound before we go to these new speakers. So really nice, kind of sweet cleans. We can turn that up a bit more if we want. It gets really loud, really clean, doesn't break up. And we also have a second channel. Let's go ahead and kick into the gain stage. I don't know what it is, just channel 2. It doesn't really label it on here, but here we go. So it's kind of growly when you kick it into that second channel, that lead channel. Very rhythmy. I wouldn't call it a true lead channel at this volume. Let's see if we can bump it up just a little bit. And I know we're not here to talk about this speaker, but I want to get a good bass line with this amplifier. So let's go ahead and do this. And you can really see this speaker moving a ton. This one single 12-inch speaker being pushed by 65 watts seems a bit excessive, but I think that it has a lot of versatility. It's just short of what I would call metal without adding like a metal zone boost pedal or something like that. But just with this amplifier, with those settings, we have the pre and gain cranked pretty high, but let's just put it in a more reasonable area. So there you go. That's what this Scorpion speaker sounds like with this amplifier. Very respectable. high quality sound. Let's go ahead and pop this Jensen speaker in here and hope that we don't blow it. All right, so let's go ahead and take this speaker out. We just have 4 screws to take out, and I'm gonna go ahead and unlock. I'm gonna go ahead and unhook the cable before I do anything. These are luckily just the quick connect style, no solder needed. So there we go, our speaker is disconnected from the amplifier. These are nice long machine screws on these PV amps, which I really like. You're not screwing into wood, you're screwing into a threaded insert on the back of this hole so that it's very rock solid, it's hard to strip, and easy to replace speakers on the fly. Everything about these PV amps from the 80s and I guess even the 70s and 90s as well, but all of these kind of now vintage PV amps were meant to be rocked on stage, to be modded, to be swapped out and easily worked on and give you years of kind of, I wouldn't say flawless performance, but certainly really respectable performance. All right, so this speaker looks just like so. It is a Scorpion, and I think this is actually a 4 ohm variant because this amp is a 4 ohm amp, but that's okay, so we should be fine. All right, let's just hook her back up. All right, so we should be good to go. Let's hook her up and see what she sounds like. All right, so I've got this speaker plugged into this amplifier and it's all hooked up. I turned all of my volumes and gains and pump down just because I don't want to blow this thing right off the bat. And just a little warning at home, don't try this at home. You should never really have a speaker or a speaker array, could be 2 speakers, that are undermatched compared to the wattage output of your amplifier. So we have a maximum output of 65 on this Encore, so that would destroy this speaker because it has a maximum handling of 25 watts. So we're just gonna go ahead and ease into this and hopefully not exceed that 25 watt threshold too much. So here we go. So let's go ahead and add a little bit of pre. Starting to get some sound, but so these Jensen speakers are really known for exceptional cleans, and of course they were stocked on the Fender amplifiers back in the day, and maybe still are, I'm not exactly sure, but this is a 1965 Jensen, so chances are it was probably on a Fender Deluxe or Reverb, one of those old school tube amps. And they only put out about 22 watts, so that's why you see these 25 watts speakers paired with that amplifier back in the day. So let's go ahead and tempt fate and go into our dirty channel with the speaker and see what that sounds like. Okay, getting a little rhythm crunch there. Doesn't sound like it's overdriving that speaker too much right now. So I would find that very acceptable for most rhythm applications. Not very gainy by any means, but it has a nice amount of breakup, and it doesn't feel like, once again, it doesn't feel like it's pushing that speaker too hard with this amp having 65 watts in its back pocket. One more bit. It sounds really cool. I'd say it's just a hair quieter than the Scorpion, but I think it's less dark. It's a little brighter, less muffled maybe. So again, clean sound. So I think that's a really nice sounding speaker, and here's what I really feel about it. I don't think it's going to be the type of speaker that I have on its own. I think that this is the perfect speaker to work into maybe a set of 3 V30s and have a 25 watt speaker in there, kind of just lowering the temperature of everything a little bit, because maybe 4 V30s tends to be, I don't know, a little on edge for some people's ears. The other application would be just in a 2x12 and have another either 25 or 30 watt speaker, and I think that would pair well with this Rocker 30 that is almost in view of your screen. But I think that's where this speaker will shine, paired with a more meaty Celestian speaker or some other speaker that might be coming down the pike. I got one more in the tank. You'll have to stick around to see what it is. But that's what this speaker sounds like. Do I want to add any pedals? Let's try to add a pedal here. So that was the Boss Metal Zone MT2. That's one of my favorite pedals, and I didn't think it would sound very good, but it did. It didn't sound hardcore. It didn't really just throw you to the back of the room, which I don't think this speaker's ever going to do that on its own, but it sounded pretty good through that single Jensen 25 watt speaker in this PV amp. Yeah, so let's leave it at that. We have one more speaker to try out. This one I'm a bit more excited about. This is the Muscle, what is it called? The Muscle Magnet, which is something I've never heard of. I saw this speaker kind of just by chance, and I was like, huh, that looks kind of cool. So I took a flyer on it, and the seller happened to have this Jensen for sale as well, so I bundled them together. They're by no means a matched pair, but let's go ahead and hear what this thing sounds like. I don't need to show you what it looks like switching it out. Let's just go ahead and get her done. All right. Here's a little bit more information about the Muscle Magnet speaker. It's a Herald Muscle Magnet speaker, according to the seller, and it was made by Eminence. So they made a lot of these 12-inch speakers back in the day. He claims it's from the 70s, which I think is pretty close to the mark, given this style of dust cap. You see that on the JBL speakers from the 70s and some other various speakers. So this is around 40 watts, he guessed. I don't know what that means, but we're gonna play it safe and do the same thing and bust up our volume from 0. So here we go. pretty nice sounding cleans. And let's go ahead and do the same thing with our dirty channel. So that's peaking my audio like crazy. Let me adjust my microphone for this much louder speaker. So let me bump that down and yeah, I think that should work. So like I said, this is a much louder speaker. I don't think I have exceeded my threshold of dials as I had on the previous one, but it's much, much louder. Again, very rhythm sounding. Let's see if we can get some more metal-y sounds out of this type of speaker. The speaker is also moving quite a bit. I can actually see the motion of it. With that little bit of breakup in there, it's not what I would call metal, but let's see what we can do here. No. I think that's probably about as gainy as this amp does with this one single speaker. I can say that when you hook up another cabinet, a 2x12 or a 4x12 out of the second auxiliary out on the back of this amplifier, then it sounds a bit different. So one single speaker in this one single cab. Maybe not the ideal way to test these speakers, but this is the best way that I had to isolate individual speakers, keep the amp the same, you name it. So I guess I could hook up the Rocker 30 through this cabinet, but we'll have to do that another day. Let's go ahead and plug in the MT2 Metal Zone and see what that sounds like through this type of speaker. I think I like it more than the Scorpion speaker that was in there. So, sorry to say, the Scorpion speaker does not have the best application here as well. Like I said, I did like it. I did like the sound, but I think that this speaker sounds better than the Scorpion. The Jensen probably does too, slightly different application. And the next step for this amplifier is to put in a higher watt speaker, like a 75 watt Creamback or a 200 watt EML. We'll get there. So anyway, that's what we got here, 2 speakers, and they sound pretty good in this amp. They don't sound as heavy as you might want if you're more of a metal geared guy, but for most applications, mostly rhythm guitar, I would say, or some kind of easier, non-aggressive solos, I'd say that these speakers both do perfectly well in this amplifier. The one thing to take note of is not to push it too hard, because 65 watts will blow both of them if they are the specified 25 watts and 40 watts. So there you go. Let me know what you think. I always kind of go into these not knowing what to expect, and it's always kind of a surprise. So I like most speakers. Some speakers I don't. I certainly don't hate these, but I think that they might have better, I don't know, better sounds when you pair them with a more aggressive speaker and kind of have a mellow, aggressive flow to split the difference. So we'll go ahead and do that at a later date, but that's all I wanted to do in this video, is unbox these, plug them in, hear what they sound like, compare them against a known good 12-inch speaker, and go from there. So if you have any questions for me, or if you want to see anything else here, let me know and I can plug in whatever you see around me. I've got Celestion speakers, hopefully have EVH, hopefully have some EV speakers, or an EV speaker coming here shortly. And yeah, other than that, that's what we do around here. So leave a comment, like and subscribe, that always helps. And if you do have any questions, let me know. Thanks, and I hope to see you on the next one.